How would you like to discover the blueprint of a unicorn and how to architect billion-dollar companies from the ground up by designing for scale, network effects, AI, and market disruption from day one, not by accident? Sheldon Wolf will tell us how, and he's the founder of Intellitary and a serial entrepreneur with more than 3 decades of mastery in real estate, finance, and technology. And he's renowned for disrupting traditional industries and building scalable high-growth businesses. And Sheldon has a proven track record of transforming visionary ideas into market-leading enterprises. So, Sheldon, tell us about the blueprint of a unicorn, how to architect billion-dollar companies. How can someone get there?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Well, to me, it's all chemistry. I mean, this is all I've done for well over 3 decades: is build companies and grow companies and fix other people's messes. So the easiest way to start with a $1 billion company is it's like architecture. You start with a good blueprint. So you say, well, what business, for example, real estate's $1 trillion industry. So there's lots, right off the bat, there's lots of money to be made, lots of monetization to be had. It's just a matter of how do you acquisition that money. And you say, well, what other companies are out there? Well, you take something like Zillow. Well, there's billions of dollars. They've proven that you don't have to be the broker. You just have to control the customer. So then you take it to the next step. You say, how do I control the customer differently? How do I control that customer better? How do I monetize that customer more? How do I make it so that I create a circle of winners, whether it be the real estate company, the brokerage, whether it be the realtors, whether it be the mortgage agents? How do I make it so everybody benefits, including the customer? And that's usually the best blueprint you're going to have, is when you create a business where everybody's a winner, because then it becomes insatiable. You have lots of people who rely on it.
Thank you. Tell us your 10-step blueprint. Like, what can people do to have a unicorn when they're starting from zero?
Starting from zero. Well, I'd say before you start, it's all about, like, my first thing from my second hat, which is the investor hat. So one side of me is the investor, the other side of me is the founder. So let's be the investor first of all. Let's talk about what I would look for. To me, the founder is very important. So you'd want to learn the knowledge. You'd have to have some sort of a background in whatever it is you're doing. You wouldn't want to get into a business you know nothing about, and or otherwise it's going to be a long, dreadful trip of trial and error. And you don't want to do that. You want to learn from whatever and move it forward. So I would say the most important thing that I look for would be the founder. But as far as building the blueprint, you need to have a concept, and you need to have a concept that's easy to prove. Something like Intellitary, for example. Well, we know that every single person needs a roof over their head. So whether they're buying, whether they're selling, whether they're renting, and then you say, okay, well, let's say they're buying or selling. Well, there's mortgages involved. We know that. So it's a proven industry. The concept's there. We know people use this service. I didn't invent a trinket that I hope people like or I think people will like. This is about something people use in their day-to-day lives. A good example is Uber came along and they entered the transportation business. They didn't invent the taxi cab. The taxi cab's been there for a long time. They said, hey, we can compete with the taxi cab. We can do something a little bit different. And that's what they did. So if you look at their blueprint, they entered a business that was already there, but they made it more interesting. And that's exactly what Intellitary's done.
Thank you. So tell us the other steps for someone who wants to build a unicorn.
You want more steps, do you, huh? Okay. Well, the various different things are, you get into the deep thing, you go into, forget the founder. You say, well, who else is involved? How is this thing built? Ultimately, if you're founding something like this, you're going to have to convince a lot of investors to say, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. And yes, this business is viable. So then you need things like workflows. You need to understand the cost of customer acquisition. It's important, if you're going to build this unicorn, that somewhere down the road, this thing's making money, and there has to be proof of life. So, for example, what is the customer worth at the end of the day? well, what does it cost to acquisition this customer? I see way too many of these companies, and I'm amazed how they got so far so fast, and they've never made a nickel. They've never made a nickel. And you look at the model and you say, well, if it's going to cost you $200 to get a customer and you're only going to make $50 off of them, it's just not viable. But yet I see some of these things go, and for whatever reason, they're, I shake my head, but that's okay. I mean, there's one company, they lost last quarter $1.25 billion. And I keep looking at the model, I keep looking at the people involved, and none of the people actually know anything about real estate. So they keep bringing in new people, then the next quarter comes up, they lose money. So it's important that you have the evidence and the workflows. You have to know how this thing's going to make money somewhere down the road, whether it makes money day one, whether it makes money after a year or two or whatnot. There's a lot of companies, I'll be the first to say, that run off a Superman mentality. The Superman mentality is he gets on top of the building and he jumps, but before he jumps, says, don't worry, I'm going to jump down. I know I'm going to drop down so many hundreds of feet, but there is going to be a magical point. I'm going to swoop back up. And if you're engineered properly, you will actually do that. There's a lot of companies that take a little bit of runway to get to where they have to go and become profitable. But then there's some where you dissect it, you go, this thing will never be profitable. So let's skip topic. Let's go and say, what is the next thing I'm looking for as far as being an investor and looking at something like Intellitrader, for example? I want to know, what does this thing look like in 5 years from now? What does this thing look like in 10 years from now? Well, once again, it's not one of those whimsical things where, eventually people are going to get bored of this model. The bottom line is people still need a roof over their head. They'll still need it's all customer centric. So there'll always be a need for another customer. And that's kind of how that is. So like a restaurant, we know that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people will still eat. They'll still want food, and they'll still want, so you look at, there's a lot of companies that have gotten into that circle. They don't make the food, but they deliver the food. And once again, that's a good concept in the sense that we don't build the home, we don't sell the home, we deliver the customer. And that's kind of what we've gone from that angle. So it's always a matter of finding that niche, but most importantly, it has to be monetizable. Where does the money come from? Where is the profit going to come from? Far too many companies, like I said, they look and they brag about all the revenue they've earned, but then you switch to the other column and it's where the losses are posted. And once again, you've made money, but it's cost you more money to make the money than you've actually made. It's easy to show off and avoid showing the losses column, but at the end of the day, there's going to come a magical point where investors are going to get a little kind of concerned, and you want to build this for longevity, like I said. And the easiest way to start, if you say, well, what else should I be looking at for going from ground one? Well, look at other people's mistakes. What a great way to learn. Rather than make the mistakes yourself, lose millions of dollars, why not watch the other people who've already done that for you? And, people's mistakes and mistakes in general are the best way to learn. Whether they are your mistakes or whether they're someone else's, you got to learn. And either way, learning is learning. It's all part of building this company.
Thank you. What separates a company that can become a unicorn versus one that you believe cannot? Like, what are some features that make a company a unicorn?
Well, once again, I've seen companies that have become unicorns, and I honestly have no idea where they're ever going to get. I've seen companies that have made all this money, but it's all come from funding to replace funding and new funders, and yet they still don't know how to make money. There's companies that have been in business a decade and have still never actually made a nickel. To me, it's not. It goes beyond that, because that would never be something as a company, that wouldn't be me saying, hey, I'm here to do this to break a new record, or it'd be a matter of, I'm kind of old school that way. I want something to bring value to the table, whether it's value to an industry, whether it's valuable to a consumer, whether it's to investors, or all of the above. To me, it's always a matter of, I would want something to be profitable. At the end of the day, we're all running businesses, we're all building businesses, doing what we do. But at the end of the day, why do we do it? Well, at the end of the day, investors are going to want to see some profit. They're going to want to see that there's some benefit for them putting the risk into it. No differently than myself. I mean, I risk every single day. I wake up in the morning, I involve myself, my time, my money, and you want to see something in return. But the difference to me, in my mind, of building something smaller, building something big, it's if I go back in time and maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I would have been impressed with something else, a different amount or whatnot. Where today, I think because we have technology and there's more avenues and there's more ways to do things, to me, I think it's a matter of very little differential. I think if you have a good concept today, it's just as easy to build something good as it is to build something mediocre or not good at all. And I think there's enough good models that have proven with a proven track record to prove that what you're doing is viable. And there's also enough track record out there to prove that something that someone's doing is not viable. There's enough failures. So take the iBuyer industry, for example. There was a while a few years back where everyone was an iBuyer buying real estate. And there were people who've never bought and sold real estate, but they thought, hey, let's set up an IPO and do a public company and we'll buy real estate. Except I'm trying to think of any of them actually worked out. I mean, they got the money, they got the funding, and maybe they became unicorns, but there's a lot of them that are really, really hurting. In fact, there's one company that almost got dragged down by doing that. And then ditching the concept was what actually saved them. But that's a good example. There's lots of companies that probably shouldn't, but do. But that's kind of the way the game goes. But it's just as easy to take a good concept and make it better.
Thank you. I've always thought that unicorn is more like a company that has the possibility of making like $1 billion and also is bringing like a very special way of doing business, like maybe a special technology, a different way of doing things that other companies are not doing, introducing something completely new. Am I right in saying that? Or is there a different interpretation to what a unicorn is?
You're partially right. For the most part, we use the term unicorn to reference anything $1 billion or higher and whatnot. But there's a lot of companies that, like I said, managed to get that status based on different qualifications. But let's jump back to IntelliTrade for 1 second. I didn't invent real estate. I've been in real estate for over 3 decades, but I certainly didn't invent it. I didn't invent the process. I didn't invent the brokerage. But if you look at the industry as a whole, it's an industry that doesn't really like change very much. It does change. It has evolved, but it's been really slow. But let's look at what has changed. It's actually the customer that's changed. Once upon a time, back in 1989, I would bring catalogs over to people's homes and sit at their kitchen table with them and say, hey, let's look at these black and white pictures of properties in this catalog. And then I would book things, and then I would set up showings, and I would do all these things where that's obsolete. I mean, the fact of the matter is every single person who has a phone in their hand can now search the MLS, can use IDX, can research what schools can do all that. So it's the customer that's actually changed. It's the customer that now goes on to Amazon, presses a button. By the time they finish plugging in their credit card, they're already running to the door. Where's my order? Where's my shopping? It's the customer who wants things right here, right now, and that fast. So we're in an era where what you're seeing is these old legacy brokers. It's kind of like the Flintstones meets the Jetsons. You have all these legacy brokerages who are still working on old school technology. And then you have all these new cloud-based brokerages who are buying up all these old legacy brokerages. But their philosophy is simple. Their philosophy is we're going to buy brokerages so we can have more agents, and therefore more agents equals more transactions. And it's like what I said earlier. Why go through all that process when you can deal with what we're building, which is just harvesting transactions? We're essentially going to be a farm where we grow customers and pick them off trees and hand them to the brokerages. So we don't need to have 14,000 agents to do 50,000 transactions. We'll just build the 50,000 transactions and hand them to the brokerage. And that's kind of our philosophy. We're using our technology. We're taking an industry, but we're making it better. We're making it more efficient. And that's kind of the opposite grain. We call it the unbrokerage, but that's the opposite direction in which the industry is going. So to build a unicorn, doing something that's proven, which is real estate, because we know people need roofs over their heads. And what we're doing is we're adding a component of technology. So if you go onto IntelliTrade, you'll see how we've used AI to literally build an unbeatable system that really there's no way that I could ever talk to 20,000 people at the same exact time. And that's what we're using. We're using some pretty high-end technology, and it just makes it so we can compete with a brokerage with 14,000 agents. Although we're not here to compete with them, we actually want to work with them and partner with them. But that's, to build a unicorn, you have to be big, you have to be bold, and you have to know your crap, so to speak.
Thank you. Tell us more about IntelliTrade. Like, how did you come up with this idea, and what do you think allows to make it a unicorn? Is it this that you just said, that you can create the possibility for so many people to connect together at the same time?
Yeah, well, our technology, if you go onto the website, you'll see Chloe in action. I designed her using my 30 plus years of real estate experience and financing experience and all the things that I know very well. I mean, I wasn't just in real estate. I was in real estate to a massive, massive scale, to the point of thousands of transactions. I found ways to almost multiply myself. My favorite phrase was always, if only I could clone myself. And then one magical day, I was able to clone myself with AI. So instead of Sheldon being able to only talk to one person at a time and talk to only so many people in a day, literally, I was able to use how I would handle a phone call, how I would handle this situation. Literally, every possible situation, I can handle 20,000 at a time, literally. And then it was kind of built this way. And I say, it's kind of like what happens when you put Zillow, Uber, and Match.com into a blender, because that's essentially what it is. So imagine through AI, it's screening, it's qualifying, and then it's matching, and it's dispatching this customer times 20,000 at a time to independent realtors and brokerages all across the US, all in real time. But it dispatches them the similar way that an Uber would dispatch a ride to a customer, except in this situation, it's our subscribed agents that get the benefit of this. And then back to the flaws of the industry. Well, I come from a day where once upon a time, if you had a brokerage, you would take a fairly sizable cut of the commission that your agent would produce. Sometimes 50-50, sometimes 70-30, 40-60, all different splits over the years. But with the new technology era, what's happened is a lot of these so-called splits have gone down to little microscopic deal fees. So you have some brokerages getting as little as $275 per deal from their agent, and they're finding that there's just not enough revenue. Once again, you look at their financials and there's nothing but charming losses. So in some situations, our partnerships, the actual brokerage will make more money from IntelliTrade than they will from their own realtor. So then you say, what brokerage wouldn't want to deal with our 50,000 transactions that we build? And the answer is any smart brokerage would be more than glad to receive an extra 50,000 transactions. And that's literally what we're planning for year one. So you look and say, well, what are 50,000 transactions worth? Well, they're worth many, 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 many millions. When you start putting it into commission, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. When you add that on top of losses that maybe a real estate brokerage would have had, well, that sometimes cleans up their books real quick. So does it make sense? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I orchestrated IntelliTrade to do what it's supposed to do right from day one. It's all by design. This isn't a guy who just woke up some Sunday morning and said, I'm bored, I need to do something different. Now, this is strategically designed, once again, to create winners on all levels, whether it be the investors. To me, if it's going in my camp, well, I'm the biggest investor so far, and I'm very particular on who I bring in as investors, just because it is it's this one's a no-brainer. It's like betting on a horse that you already know has won the race.
Thank you. Tell us, what are the benefits for a broker, for example, to be part of Intellatary platform?
Well, think of it this way. I'll use an analogy that most people wouldn't even think of, but Best Western, for example, they don't own a lot of their hotels. They have a whole bunch of independent guys who own hotels and motels, and at the end of the day, their job is to bring the customer using their brand to the hotel, and that's where the hotel takes over and acts like a hotel and does what they do best. We're kind of built the same way, in a very similar but high-tech version of that, in the sense that we're not going to take the customer and drive them around, show them houses. We're not going to go sit at their kitchen table and list their property. We're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is take them to our brokerage and say, hey, here's Joe Smith. He wants to sell this house. He wants to buy again. And he also needs a mortgage, was what we're going to say to our mortgage agents. And we're going to have the whole conveyor belt path where we monetize the customer from the very first start right to the end, where he's selecting attorneys from our catalogs, whether he's picking movers, on and on. So, I mean, this isn't our first day at the rodeo. This is a well-oiled system that I've been actually using for years, just built for the brokerages. So back to the brokers, how do they benefit? A deal actually closes, one of their agents closes the deal, funds, we actually pay the brokerage. So like I said, they're going to end up making more money from us than they are from their own realtors in some cases. Some of the brokerages are getting like literally $275 from their agent when a deal closes. Some are getting 10%. It's all over the board these days. But even at 10%, they'll still be getting more money from us than they would be from their own realtor. So they're actually doubling, because they're still getting paid by their realtors. They're still getting the deal fees they normally get, but we're paying them a success fee as well. So it becomes just a big, giant machine where everybody wins, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the real winners, the customer actually got good service.
Thank you. Tell me, what benefit is there for a company that is selling their property to use? Are they going to use this platform, Intellatary, as well, or is it just for brokers?
No, it's, I designed it strategically just because my nature is don't leave money on the table no matter what business you have. If you're a butcher shop, you don't butcher a cow so you can have one steak. You don't butcher it so you can have two steaks. You make the most of absolutely everything. And our view is this. We have a customer acquisition cost that's in top of mind. And our view is we need to take that customer and get as much benefit as possible. So we have the B2B part, which everyone can see, which is we deal with the brokerages, we deal with the realtors, we deal with the mortgage brokers. That's what I call a B2B component. It's very SaaS. So it runs like clockwork. Everything just gets distributed. Customers get moved all over the place and throughout the system. Appointments get set, all that jazz. But we do have a B2C part as well, which is where we're dealing with the homeowner directly, for example. So ultimately, at the end of the day, that's a customer that's going to want to deal with one of our realtors or deal with one of our iBuyers. But at the end of the day, it's monetization that shouldn't be left on the table. If there's services we could provide them directly, why not do it? We're already in communication with them. It'd be kind of silly to not get that extra revenue from it. So, I mean, my background is exactly that. I'm what I would consider a data expert. So we know exactly how to acquisition the customers at a way lower cost than anyone else would be able to. And then at the same time, we know how to monetize the customer. That data is very valuable. Data as a currency is more valuable than the actual dollar. So, we make sure every dollar we spend brings back a certain rate of return.
Thank you. I didn't understand, though, why do brokers make a lot more money when they go through your platform versus if they just do it in the normal way?
Well, they are recommended to keep doing what they're doing. This is the deals they don't get. So, for example, and not to pick names, but let's just say, for example, I had a deal with ABC Real Estate Co. And ABC Real Estate Co. has, 20,000 agents, and every year they typically do about 50,000 transactions. Keep doing those 50,000 transactions. What we're doing is we're bringing them an additional 50,000 transactions without them having to hire and recruit another 20,000. We just simply dump another 50,000 transactions on top. Now they're at 100,000. They grow up that top 10 real estate company tree real fast without having to do anything. So as far as revenue goes, they're not only collecting the deal fees from their broker or from their agents, but they're also getting the success fees from us as well. So we're an enhancement. Like I said, it'd be like back to the Best Western thing. We're not telling the hotel, stop doing business, rely on our business only. Keep doing what you're doing. If people walk into your hotel and want to book a room, do it. Take it. All we're saying is if you want to grow and beat up on your competition, have an unfair advantage over your competition, yeah, you certainly should be talking to us, because you have to ask yourself one important question. If you say, well, these guys can cultivate 50,000 transactions, well, where are they coming from? Well, ABC Real Estate knows that if I'm getting 50,000, I'm usually taking them from their competition. The fact of the matter is, we build this system, and the customer could have just as easily gone anywhere else, but instead they've chosen to follow our workflows and go through our brokerages, our brokerage partners. So yes, the bottom line is we're eating someone else's lunch, and we've always been in the competitive business. So the bottom line is we also know we'll probably lose a dealer here or two from some other competing brokerage or whatnot, but that's okay. At the end of the day, we'll have an extra 50,000 transactions, and we'll give them to our partners.
Thank you. Why are you calling this the unbrokerage?
It's the unbrokerage model because our view is this. The old model was brokerage A, legacy brokerage A buying brokerage B, buying brokerage C, trying to get up a body count of agents. We're not interested in recruiting agents. We're not interested in doing that end of the business. Our only job here is to cultivate customers and churn them into transactions and deliver them to brokerages that already exist. So rather than competing with them, we want to view them as strategic partners. And to us, we do what we do best, and they do what they do best. But the biggest problem, you say, what is the biggest problem in the industry of real estate? Sheldon, you've been in this business for 30 plus years. What's the biggest industry? Well, the same problem that goes back to 1989 is the same problem as it is here in 2026. Realtors in general are not all created equal. The bottom line is 90% of them struggle to get customers. They struggle to get customers, and then when they do get customers, a lot of them fail. They don't get the customer past the finish line. They don't close the deal. And then what do they make? Well, we know what realtors make if the deal doesn't close. They make zero. In most cases, they only get paid if the deal closes. So you don't get paid to walk in and do a listing appointment. You get paid when you get the listing and the listing sells. So when I say that we're enhancing, we're actually from a brokerage perspective, what we're doing is we're helping them monetize underperforming agents that normally struggle. We're hand delivering customers right to that agent in real time, saying, here, I know you've been struggling. Well, here's a customer who wants to buy. Here's a customer who wants to sell. Here's a customer who's already ready to list. So, I mean, we're literally giving them business almost always cost their competition getting the customer. So.
Thank you. So how do you choose which broker gets the best deals that are listed?
We're pretty particular because if the customer starts off on our platform, to us, we've got the most to lose. So for example, you could imagine I've done a lot of testing and I've dealt with a lot of thousands of realtors over the years, literally. And there's nothing worse than if you're standing outside of a $4 million house and you want to get in to see it and you don't even get a call back from the realtor, or he doesn't return your email, or he doesn't return your text message or your voicemail. There's nothing more frustrating. And to prove my point, we've actually done testing, and it's almost alarming that the amount of money he would have made as a commission, and homeowners trusted this guy to make sure he's getting this house sold fast and doing the best he can. But when, let's just say, 8 out of 10 realtors don't even call you back or don't reply your message, or they call you back, but it's 3 days too late. To me, I wouldn't want to partner with that. I would want to partner with people who are genuinely interested in helping customers, who are genuine, because it's our reputations that's going to suffer. It'd be like me recommending you to go somewhere and then you having a bad experience, right? So we want to make sure that who we're partnering with completely understands our system, prioritizes our system. If we hand a referral off to Joe Smith, the realtor, that Joe Smith handles this customer with full white gloves and treat their customer exactly how they should be treated. So, like I said, it's 100% of a referral business that we're running here. And like I said, we're delivering customers that are high intent. They've already been screened. They've already been qualified in most situations, because we handle the mortgage side of it too with our mortgage partners. They're pretty much ready to sign their name and buy the property or list their property. We want to make sure that the company we're dealing with is on our page, and they have to be high tech. And we don't want to deal with someone who doesn't even know how to use a computer, kind of thing. There are some customers, or there are some brokers that are still literally living in the Stone Age, and they're using these old clunky CRMs. And we're all about automation, so we want to make sure that our brokerage partners are set up and automated too.
Thank you. I didn't understand though, like, let's say you have 20,000 brokers that are listed on your platform. How and who is going to get, let's say, the best deals based on what criteria?
We're not looking to have, from a realtor standpoint, we want coverage right across the country. So there's a few national brokerages which I think are large enough, but there's some gaps. So we'd have to obviously fill in there. We're more about quality than we are quantity as far as brokerages. If I can have this narrowed down to a brokerage, and we have a few that have in mind that we've kind of been chatting and whatnot. But before I make a decision, there's a lot of due diligence that I need to go into. So, I mean, it's the same thing with investors. We're seeking venture capital partners too, but if they've never dealt with prop tech before and they don't understand my industry, the last thing we want is a bunch of backseat drivers who don't get what we're doing. You have to get, if you get what I'm doing, it's a no-brainer. Like I said, it's like betting on a horse that has already won the race. So typically they don't let you bet after the race begins because you already know who the winner is. In this case, like I said, this ain't my first rodeo. To me, this whole project is a no-brainer. It's just a matter of putting the right partners in place and off to the races we go. And like I said, to us, we're very particular who we lock horns with. A lot of companies, just all they care about is the first person to write a check. We're more interested in the right person writing the right check with the right connections. And that's kind of our strategy.
Thank you. What would you say makes Intellitere a unicorn? Is it like a new way of doing things?
It's not so much just the new way of doing things. It's how we do it, the workflows, the automation, the magnitude. For me to run even simple numbers, I mean, let's get real. I mean, at the end of the day, it's data. I mean, we could turn on advertising just the same way as Zillow could turn on advertising and push customers to the website. It's what you get after that. So take, for example, a lot of real estate. Let's just talk in general. Let's be general but specific to how a customer is acquisitioned. So take a typical customer goes to a real estate website, looks at properties, finds something, and fills out a form to get more information on a property. And they put their name, their first name, their last name, their email, their phone number, and then it gets sent off to ultimately a realtor. 1% to 3% of people who hit that website actually fill out that form. In our situation, because I've got Chloe, who's our AI, audio, video, two-way, concierge, she approaches absolutely everybody who goes to the website. So what does that mean, differential? Well, it means instead of 1% to 3% of customers who go to the website who produce data and information, we're in a situation where we may be receiving data from 70%. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means our cost of customer acquisition is a fraction. And then the matter of, okay, so let's just say the typical websites send the email or text message to the realtor who then gets the lead. The stats that most people don't know, but I've been doing this a long time, is you only will speak to about 50% of the people that you would get as a lead. We decided we're not going to be in the leads business. We're going to be in the referral business. We're going to verify these customers. We're going to screen these customers. We're going to qualify these customers. And then we're going to pass them to our agents in real time. There's no, you're getting this lead 2 hours too late. You're getting this a day too late, 2 days too late. You're getting the customer right here, right now. You're going to know exactly what their intent is. In some cases, you're literally going to get this customer in the same way you would get an Uber customer. This customer wants to view 123 Cherry Tree Lane at this time, and whichever realtor is able to pick it up at that time will click on it. And basically what will happen is our workflows will just, fully automated. So I think the last question you'd asked was, as far as the brokerages and realtors receiving, and who would we pick? Our view is we want to make sure that we're locking horns with obviously reputable brokerage large enough to cover the country. There's always going to be a few spots where they're just not, which is usually typically of where we don't do a lot of business either. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they're fairly technology-oriented platform as well, so that we can connect and have little droppage as possible. So the customer, like I said, has a seamless transaction from beginning to end, regardless of what they're.
You also mentioned that normally 3% of people tend to fill out a form, and then who knows if the agent or broker will actually get back to them. But with your formula, because there is an AI, a conversational AI that is installed on your website, then you can convert as much as 70% of the people coming in, which leads to much higher, much lower cost of acquisition, and you're able to convert a lot of the people that are coming in. And you also vet these people and make sure that the people that are actually wanting to buy and so on, they are actually serious. And then you pass these leads to like some of the most serious brokers that you have. But let's say if you have 20,000 brokers, like how do you choose who gets the lead out of those first? Do you have a system for that too?
Yeah, oddly enough, because it's my diabolical nature, but yeah, we have a scoring matrix that we built in. So, for example, if we're handing out referrals, and I'm going to simplify this. Let's bring it down to a city where we're sending all of our referrals to a brokerage in a city, and the same guy keeps getting our customers, and after X amount of time, 0 of them convert. There's a part where it starts scoring the agents as well. If, for example, an agent doesn't show up to one of our appointments, well, that makes us look bad. So they may get bumped right off our list. If they don't follow the protocols we put in place, they may get bumped off the list. But we ultimately, at the end of the day, and the brokerage wants to see this as well. We're very aligned with what they want. They want to see more revenue coming into the brokerage. Well, they're going to get that when more deals are closing. So if we're sending referrals to agents that aren't closing the deals, well, that's a problem there. We're going to make sure that we're always sending to people who actually are motivated to close. And the scoring model is built in to score how long it takes for the realtor to get back to the customer. Did they miss a point? They'll even get ratings, much the same way as if it was an Uber driver and the Uber driver was rude to the customer. It's just that model that we're building because we want perfection. I've spent decades in this industry, and I know it's not a perfect industry. Do I know it could be? Well, I already know what the future of real estate looks like, and I already know the behavior of the customer has changed. Their expectations have changed, and we're here to cater to that. So, why run the opposite direction because the customer is more knowledgeable today, or the customer uses AI, and the customer can research almost anything they want with the press of a button? Well, we're embracing that. My philosophy has always been, if you don't run with technology, ultimately you get run over by technology. And there's companies that are big companies, and I'm seeing them get run over by technology because they refuse to change. And that's even in the real estate industry. There's companies that they're still stuck doing things the old way, and that's just not how the future looks. The future looks very, very fancy to the brokerages that embrace technology and we consider ourselves technology. We may be a company, we may be doing what we're doing, but we look at ourselves as a tech company more than anything else because we're just reinventing how the process is. They're in the cultivating of agents and realtors by acquisitioning more and more brokerages and recruiting agents. We're in the customer harvesting and originating business. We're going to originate the customer to the brokerage, and they're going to do their job.
Thank you. How can a company leverage this idea of building $1 billion business leveraging AI, for example?
Yeah, almost everything we've done is based on AI. As I said, I sat around many a conversation saying, if only I could clone myself. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's done thousands of transactions. Very few people in real estate and financing have done thousands of transactions. There's lots of hotshots who've done hundreds of transactions, but thousands. I mean, this is coming from an industry where the average realtor only does 3 deals a year. That's the truth of it. There's a lot of realtors who do a lot of business, but then there's a whole bunch of realtors who do very little business. It's a 90-10 rule. So coming from a guy who I'd say is a champ in this business, very few people know the industry the way I do, but I mean, I built it as a champ for champs. Anyone who's a top producer in the industry will latch on and say, yes, this is brainless. They essentially put a customer in front of me and I just do what I do best. So everything we do is AI. I built it based on the system. If only I could clone myself. Well, guess what? I can, and I did it times 1,000. So like I said, this allows me to be right across the United States as if I'm hand delivering a referral to that agent in real time. In fact, it's better than me because like I said, I can't talk to 20,000 people at once. And I got to be honest with you, she handles a customer, she meaning our AI tech, she handles the customer as good, if not better than myself. And I was pretty damn good. I rarely lost a customer. I rarely didn't get referrals. I rarely had a bad experience. If I went into the listing, I walked out with a listing. If I took a customer out to see properties they bought, and end of story, it was a seamless machine. We turned over thousands of properties for builders, for developers, new homes, old homes. It was a pretty crazy machine. And I just turned it into Intellitary. That's all I've done. I've used today's technology and said, well, if I could sell myself thousands of properties, if I could clone myself, well, we're talking 50,000 a year. And that's out of year one. Do I think I can double that? Yeah, I'm using year one as a test ground before I make this thing really blow up big. But do I have even a doubt in my head that this thing won't work? Nah. Like I said, it's betting on a horse that you already know is going to win, because this is what I've done for 3 decades. It's just now we've got AI to make me even more efficient.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can connect with you.
You can connect with me at my email at sheldon@intellitary.com. That's INTELLITARY.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And also, if you'd like to see the website itself and test out our AI, the AI is called Chloe AI, our proprietary AI girl. She's fantastic. Go to intellitary.com, INTELLITARY.com. And like I said, if you're an investor, call me directly and I'll get you a special package. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.